Today on the Magic for Life podcast, we have Kathryn Jones. Kathryn is a #1 best-selling author, certified internet marketer, and funnel design guru. She has spoken at Funnel Hacking Live, and she's taught thousands her philosophy of design hacking. Most importantly, Kathryn is awesome, and you're not going to want to miss today's episode.
I've spent the last 20 years studying, teaching, and coaching people to find their greatness and take their lives to the next level. Along the way, it's become evident that emotions are at the root of everybody's successes and failures. Worry and fear are the enemies, and it's time to forge the armor and earn the tools to overcome the two things that could single-handedly destroy your future. Hi, my name is Michael Johnson, and I'm a life coach, a peak performance trainer, and I'm the emotions guy. It's time to take back control of how you feel, control of how you act, and control of how you experience life. It's time to become a lifer, a new breed of overachiever focused on living every minute to its fullest. We are responsible for how we feel, and no one and no thing can make us feel anything. Emotional mastery is our journey, and emotional education and intelligence is the key. We are lifers, and this is Magic for Life.
What's up, lifers? Michael Johnson here with the Magic for Life podcast, and we're so excited to join us today is the Miss Kathryn Jones. Thank you.
Hello. I'm honored to be here. Thank you seriously so much for having me.
Absolutely. And if you don't know Kathryn, first of all, you heard the intro, and she is amazing, and you've got to get to know her. She has got so many amazing things that are going to rock your world, whether you are a marketer in any kind of business or you just want a better life. You've got to meet Kathryn because she's amazing. And, you have a ridiculous resume already. You're so young and so incredibly intelligent. It blows me away. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Oh, honestly, it's awesome. And we just found out we're like neighbors by like 2 minutes.
I know.
It's like, what? It's amazing. I cannot tell you how many people. So we're close to Salt Lake City. I can't tell you how many people I've met that live in Utah, not in Utah. Like I'll meet them at an event, like, where are you from? They're like, oh yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we live 2 seconds away from each other. Why is it so hard to meet up? So anyway, so not only are you amazing, we're neighbors. So we got some great vibes going on already.
It's killer. Plus we're both Cougs. Go Cougs.
Go Cougs, alma mater.
Absolutely. Blue all the way. So just a quick, give us a quick rundown for all of my audience that doesn't know you. Just give me a little bit of a rundown on your backstory that you'd like to share with them. And then I've got to dig into some of the juicy stuff. So
yes, let's do it. Okay. Long story short, I was going to school. I was studying film. And then I went on a 1.5-year long mission trip for my church to Los Angeles, which was amazing. But I kind of got to see the film world, good and bad. I just became like totally disenchanted with it, which was a little bit of a problem because I was already 3.5 years done with school. So I come back and I'm like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. And honestly, like, I even annoy myself when I think back on this, like, the really annoying millennials that are just like, I just want to help people, like I am the reason that stereotype exists. And I want to apologize to my generation and everybody else. So I come home and they're like, what do you want to do if you don't want to do film? I was like, I just want to help people, again, so stupid. I have no idea what it means, but the only indication I had was, well, it will probably be easier to help people if I had some cash. If I had money, maybe it'd be easier to this really ambiguous help people. So that like somehow led me toward business. I tried to switch my major. My university was like, are you kidding me? Get out of here. You have way too many credit hours. You are not switching majors, sweetie. So I was like, ugh. But that, honestly, Michael, that was like the best thing that had ever happened to me because it forced me to figure it out on my own. So I didn't even really know this like realm of entrepreneurship was a thing. I didn't know. I honestly started reading like personal finance books, which led me to investment books, which led me to kind of like general self-help. All of a sudden I'm in like the Tim Ferriss, James Altucher realm. And then all of a sudden I start getting into like Ramit Sethi, and people start selling me these online courses about how to build a WordPress site, email copywriting. And like, I don't know what this world is, but like, it has grabbed a hold of my soul. And also I'm getting super intrigued by this, but also I grew up as the second oldest of 8 kids. God bless my mom. She was pregnant all the 90s. Like, God bless that woman. But I loved my big family. I still do. Love my big family. And I always wanted to be a mother. Like, I just can't tell you how rad my mom is, and my pops. Like, I really won the lottery with that one. And so I always knew I wanted a family, but I also knew I wanted my life to look a little bit different. And so there's always this question of, like, how do you have significant impact inside of your home while simultaneously having significant impact outside of your home? And is that even an option? Like, is that even like a feasible thing? And for what I had in my brain, I hadn't seen it. And so when all of a sudden I start like diving into this world of internet marketing, it was like, oh my gosh, like, if I'm just not an idiot about this, like, maybe I could build this. Like it was the first medium that I was like, maybe I could build a system and a movement and a machine that would again allow me to have simultaneous impact inside my home and out. And it just took like obsession level up to like level 1,000, you know? And anyway, from there, discovered this world of funnels, realized that there is actually a science behind how you present stories, like the visual aesthetics of it. How do you present stories? A story is just an exchange of information. So that could be an offer. It could be truly anything. What does it look like to present stories that convert across all mediums? Funnels, video, podcast, stage, copy, Facebook Live, Instagram Live. Like, is there a science behind it? And almost obnoxiously so, it's so simple. And I say obnoxious because for so long, that was the lever that really was determining the inconsistency in my results. Like, we started with an agency, a funnel agency. And I don't know if you've had this before, Michael, but like, we would have one client and we would kill it. And like, literally you would just be like, I am the internet. Like, I own this thing, you know? Literally our next client, we bombed. And I'd be like, I'm quitting. I'm never coming back. Everything's terrible. Like, And what was honestly fascinating is that it was this aspect of design. Like, how do you present these stories? What are the visual ways that you need to present these things for them to actually convert? And once we learned that was the lever, it was this beautiful double-edged sword, because one, awesome, we found what the broken link was. Two, terrible, because I know nothing about design. I don't know anything about design. It's terrible. But really, we found studies from Google and Stanford that said it takes a person 0.05 seconds to determine the credibility of your website, like the credibility of something. And over 90% of what they're judging is your design. So we learned in marketing, like, you might be the guru of all gurus. You might have the most incredible offer in the world. You might have the best copy that's ever been written. But if your stuff is not presented in a way that your customer expects, you lose the game. You're dead in the water because people won't even stay on your site long enough to see what you're actually selling. And so all of a sudden we started to look into what does this look like to actually solve it. And the reason why people were just struggling so much is because they looked at this concept of design entirely wrong. Design is not an art. It's not this like ambiguous, nebulous thing, or, you know, sometimes like you feel it or you don't, you know. It's actually a really structured science. It's a series of steps to take and a series of decisions to make and a series of tools to use. And we have been able to find that truly across every single medium: video, podcast, stage, copy, Instagram stories, Facebook Lives, like literally everything is a structured science when it comes to the actual presentation of it. So our company, Design Hacking Studios, what we do is we show people how to present stories in a way that actually convert, which is just so fun. I mean, you have amazing people with amazing stories and amazing products that never see the light of day, not because they're bad products, they just don't know how to present them. And so to give people the tools to be able to do that, it's just way fun. So who could have known a really angsty millennial girl somehow ended up on the World Wide Web being crazy passionate about helping people present stories that convert. So here we are.
You know, that's how it goes. You just don't know sometimes. But and you have some amazing processes and things. I mean, from the moment I got into your world, you know, you begin delivering amazing value from the very first minute I got to know you. And you know, we took the very first thing you taught us and started implementing it immediately in what we were doing. And so I mean, honestly, to my listeners, you have to connect with Kathryn, because it's going to change your world. And it doesn't really even matter if you're in business, but I mean, most of our listeners are entrepreneurs, so it's going to make your world better. There's no doubt about it. We talk a lot about mindset and personal development on the show. And so, you know, I'm going to try to jump through a few things that will let people kind of get an idea of what's inside the mind and soul of Kathryn.
Sure.
So
Sure.
hang on tight.
Yeah, guys, who knows? It might get crazy.
I'm sure there's a huge story about it, but what's the gist of when everything wasn't working out, when it wasn't happening? Because you kind of alluded to that, and the money wasn't coming in. You had an idea of the direction you were going to go. You know, our great leader, Mr. Brunson, tells us we're one funnel away. Yeah. And when it all wasn't working and there was no money coming through, how did you keep going? How'd you keep pushing through?
I love this question. Because I think the way that I approached it for so long was incorrect. And maybe incorrect is the wrong word, but maybe just inefficient. For so long, I thought that tactics would change everything. And tactics are powerful. I mean, you teach tactics, you teach frameworks, I teach tactics, I teach frameworks. But what was truly the catalyst for, like, because I've been playing the game of the internet since 2014, but it wasn't until about the last 2.5 years that I finally started to figure stuff out, right? Where it's like, oh, we're like making more than $10,000 months. Like we're having $100,000 minutes, you know? And it's like, oh, we're like figuring stuff out here. And one of the biggest catalyst, and again, this, like, if I would have heard this in my like midst of pain, I would have been frustrated with it. I would have been mad. I would have been like, you're dumb and this is hippie, right? But it truly is like the biggest catalyst, and it's the same thing. Like I could show you my Stripe account and you could see where the spikes are. And I can look at every single one of those spikes and I can say, I figured out who I was. There was a part about myself that got really clear. And it was this process of literally determining and discovering and being okay with who it was that I wanted to be, that truly was the catalyst for that. And so again, like I would have been like really upset if that was the answer before, because you're like, that's dumb. Like you're actually dumb about that. But I had a moment where somebody asked me the question, like, who are you? Answer the question, who are you? And I like didn't know what to say other than Kathryn. I was like, I don't know, Kathryn, right? And to recognize that there was such a lack of clarity that I could not answer that was actually a little bit shaking for me. And so I started to get really clear, like, if somebody asked me that question, how would I answer? Who am I? And I knew that it needed to be something that was just, it wasn't this like long journal page that I wrote out, you know, that like, oh, well, let me go check my journal and I can tell you, right? Like who is Kathryn Jones? And like after a lot of like wrestling, it came out. It was like, I'm Kathryn Jones. I'm brave. I'm always learning. I'm alive to the world. Boom. That's it. Brave, always learning, light to the world. And it was fascinating that when I got that clarity, how I was able to filter every single hardship, decision, moment of conflict through that. So I'd be like, okay, if the truest version of Kathryn Jones was showing up, who's brave, always learning, light to the world, how would she approach the situation? And when I started to act how I believe my truest version to be, oh my gosh, it changed everything. Because I didn't shrink anymore, and I didn't hide anymore, and I didn't get afraid anymore. It's just like, oh wow, like all of my stuff just dropped, like all my tech just went down, and I'm in the middle of the biggest joint venture of my life. What am I gonna do? Brave, always learning, light to the world. Cool. Filter it through that. Boom. We can figure out a solution. But it really was like that truly has been the biggest catalyst for any ounce of success, was once I understood who I was, then having the tactics, I actually was able to go about and implement them in the way that they were actually supposed to be implemented, rather than being like, oh, I'm afraid, like, oh, I hope this works, or blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think that's been like the biggest thing for when there was no money in the bank, when I knew that I needed a fast turnaround, because I think every entrepreneur has been there, right? Where you're like, if I don't figure this out in like 2 weeks, I'm in a situation. Like I'm not in a good place. And just being like, okay, put on your bigger pants, Kathryn. Who are you? Brave, always learning, light to the world. How would that version, the truest version of Kathryn, deal with this situation? It's like, she can do it. Yeah. She can do it.
Well, good old Socrates, you know thyself, right? And totally. And that metacognition, that self-awareness is so incredibly important. And it in for a lot of people, it's really tough, you know, and it can be really challenging to figure out what
you gotta look at demons. You gotta look at weird stuff going on in your soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So challenging. Speaking of demons, you've got uh, worry and fear tend to be two of our challenges as humans, right? And they're appropriate. They're talking about our history and they're talking about our future. And how have you found to deal with that? I mean, obviously you found this self-awareness, but how have you found to deal with worry and fear as you go through your progression? Because
Oh,
it's
I love this question because I think too, especially as an entrepreneur, and like everybody listening knows this, like it's a beautiful weight to carry, but it's a weight to carry. Like you have payroll every single month that people with children, like if you don't figure it out, like they're children, you're like, oh my gosh, so stressful. But I think one of the beautiful things about design hacking, so design hacking again, is how to present stories that convert, but not only to others in a marketing sense, but to yourself. How do you present stories to yourself in a way that you actually believe it? Because in my life, like manifestations, like anything's possible, like this just it didn't resonate with me. I wanted it to really badly. I was like, oh, this will be amazing. Like it just didn't. And so, like, again, I think for anybody to be successful in business, you have to have this mindset locked down as well as the actual marketing tactics and strategy. So with design hacking, we show people how to present stories, again, not only to others in a way that converts, converting meaning changing from one form to another. So if we're doing marketing, it means like, hey, we're turning a subscriber into a buyer, and a buyer into a hyper buyer, and a hyper buyer into an evangelist for your brand, right? But if we're talking to how do you present stories to yourself in a way that convert, literally taking Kathryn, who's anxious and worried, into Kathryn, who's powerful and certain. How do I tell a story that will convert me from that to that? And the formula is actually quite simple. It feels like it should be harder, but it's actually quite simple. But it really goes along with this. It's number one, you have to get really clear about your current story. What is the current story that is driving this craziness right now? And I'll give you an example in just a second. But what's the current story? Then you have to get really clear about what you want. Most people don't ever go to that. Most people are just like, I'm really anxious and worried and everything's terrible. No, a lot of people don't get to the second thing. It goes, well, what do you actually want? Some people love to reside in here because it gives them an excuse. I couldn't do it because I was really anxious. I couldn't do it because I was really worried. And I've lived in that place before. Like, I just couldn't handle it, right? So current story, what do you want? Then you have to ask yourself this question. Will that current story get me what I want? And if the answer is no, we need to derive what we call a desired/required story. What's the required story that you have to have in order to get what you want? What is it? And I think this is the most beautiful thing. It's like, okay, so I know the real story that I wish were going through my head to get what I want. People make it a lot more difficult than it is, but if you want a story to be true, if we want that desired required story to be true, you simply have to live it. So it's like, cool, that desired required story, what's an action that I could take in this moment to make it true? Really quick example of that. Just did this huge online event with Myron Golden, this woman named Teresa Harding, who had like $1 billion sales team. It's almost obnoxious how smart she is. Anyway, do this thing. They have me pitch the offer. We pitched a $15K offer. The offer went longer than expected, like an hour longer, but we crushed it. Like I'm seeing in the Zoom, people are like, I'm in, I just bought, like boom. So like I'm doing the math in my head, right? And I'm like, we've made a few $100,000, right? Like I know that, like logistically, like I know that the pitch was good. Like I can see it. Anyway, but after the pitch is done, we like have this Vox group. We broke for lunch right after. So we kind of like paused. And like, I knew that I went an hour over later, so I knew I kind of messed up the schedule, but I'm like, it's probably okay because I just made us all $200,000+. Like, I'm sure it's fine. But like, I'm not getting any, like, nobody's saying like, hey, like, great job on the pitch, or like, it's just crickets in our Voxer group. So all of a sudden, this story is like, again, like my little anxious self is like, everybody's mad at me. I did a bad job on the pitch. They're mad that I messed up the schedule. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, Myron's mad at me, Teresa's mad at me, like, and I'm just like, nobody's saying anything. Also, can we just like learn, like, I'm a girl that has some anxiety, right? We're learning how to deal with this. So I'm like, oh my gosh, blah, blah. But I recognized it in that moment. That was my current story. That was not working for me. So I was like, what do you want? And I was like, I want to know and feel that I did the best to my ability, and my team knows that as well. That's all I need. I just need to know I try my best, and I need them to be okay with that. That's all I want. So it's like, cool. So I'm literally writing this on my phone in my notes section. Current story, boom. What do I want? Boom. What's my desired required story? I write my desired required story, which was literally just like, regardless of how other people feel, I can't remember what it was, but like, I know that I did the best to my ability. And because of that, I'm going to hang my head certain and calm. It's just a decision, right? So what are the actions? So I go about doing that. Anyway, literally all of a sudden I'm like, okay, cool. And I just like have this like moment with myself. I'm like, Kathryn, it's zen. If Myron hates you, we can get over it. Like if Teresa hates you, it's fine. We'll be fine. All of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go grab some lunch. And then I'm like trying to scroll on Instagram because, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, I just presented for 3 hours. We need to like mind them for a second. I was, my Instagram's not working. And I'm like, what? Like, what's going on? And then I realized somehow my internet is like disconnected, right? So I'm like, oh my gosh, I like reconnect my Wi-Fi. My data wasn't working for whatever reason. I like reconnect my my Wi-Fi, and all of a sudden just like these floods of messages like, we made this much money, Kathryn, that was amazing, like great stuff, like blah, blah, blah. Like Myron literally like got a voicemail from him. He's like, that was one of the best pitches I ever heard. And I have this moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, like why did I allow myself to be so crazy? Like, well, Kathryn, be normal human. But honestly, like I was so grateful for that moment because I realized how quickly I was to default to what my normal story is. Like what's really interesting, my default story is I'm in trouble and people are mad at me. It's like a very anxious type thing. And so it's just this constant thing throughout the day to be like, that story is not working for me. What do I want? What's the desired required story necessary? And what actions can I take to make that story true? And that alone, I think I'm more prone to be an anxious human being. So I really do go through that process several times throughout the day. Like I did it this morning. I'm like, I have 16 interviews today. I'm overwhelmed. So it's like, cool. Current story. What do you want? Does that require? How can I live it? And anyway, that has proven for us and for our clientele to just be like so powerful in managing and eliminating overwhelm and worry.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know you're short on time, so I want to jump into our version of the lightning round and the speed round. Because I talk a lot about emotions being at the core, we do everything to feel something, right? Totally. And that's kind of the base and the inside of it working out. I like to be able to ask what your go-to emotions are and what your limiting emotions are in certain situations. So tell us the truth.
I will. Listen. Okay,
here we go. So your go-to emotions when you're in a good place for business.
Oh, I go-to emotions. I feel hyped. Like I'm one to turn on music and literally dance in my house.
And your limiting emotion when things are going bad in business.
Oh, shrink. Okay. That is the word for sure. Shrink. Nice. I'm just like, oh, I feel small.
Go-to emotion when in a partnership when everything's going good.
Calm.
Nice. And limiting when things are going bad.
Same thing. It's my fault. Everything's terrible. We're gonna die. Very anxious attachment type. We're working through
that. Go-to emotion when you are the coach and everything's going well.
Yeah, it actually is really it's like a high. It's a high when my people do good.
Nice. And limiting emotion when it's going bad.
This is a practiced one. It's been something I've had to learn, but it's almost like I used to really blame myself, and now I guess that's it. Like that's the one I have to get out of.
What about what's your go-to emotion when you are being coached, when things are going well?
Oh, I have just learned this so well that more often than not, I have no idea what's going on. Like, I'm so grateful for third-party opinions. Anybody that gives me feedback, I'm like, thank you so much. I am like 0% resistant to it. I'm like, you're exactly right. That is crazy about me. I'm so sorry.
What about limiting when you're being coached?
The only thing, I never feel defensive. Sometimes I can just get overwhelmed where it's like, oh, there's so much to learn and there's so much to do and so much to change.
Go-to in relationships when things are going well. Go-to emotion.
Very connective.
Okay.
Like
limiting.
Closed off.
Okay. All right. That's it for the speed round. And then lastly, because I don't want to let you go without knowing for our listeners how they can find you, how they can get connected with you. I know they need to read your book because it's awesome. I got it and it's you got to read it. It's amazing.
Yes.
And it's wicked.
Honestly, best place to go for all things. Literally join our free Facebook group. We have the dopest stuff going on there all the time. We have stuff planned for this next coming month that like has yet to be seen, which is just going to be amazing. But our group's called Design Hackers Official. So Design Hackers Official, that's like the number one place you want to be. If you want to connect with me anywhere else, Instagram, YouTube, and my handle is just Miss Kathryn Jones, MS Kathryn Jones. But literally join our Facebook group. Like you cannot afford to not be in that Facebook group. So Design Hackers Official, that's what it is.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Want more magic for life? If so, then reserve your copy of my new book. Get your copy at everyminutebook.com. Inside this book, you'll find the secrets to attaining the next level of performance in anything you do. Learn the secrets behind emotional mastery that'll start you on your new journey of being a lifer. Whether you're an athlete, a business professional, or an artist, this book will change your life forever. Get your copy reserved today.